The tariff wealth distribution is going to be more people are going to be losing their homes. Or is it? Just put your elbows up and everything's going to be okay. Let's get into it and see what's going on here. So first of all, let's start off about what's going on in the housing market. People are being destroyed. They're losing their homes. This is a $265,000 loss in Brampton. You've got this $500,000 power of sale in Vaughan. You know, it just continues. This Toronto buyer put down $725,000 on a pre-construction condo in 2022, and now it's worth $465,000. So that is what is happening to people in the housing market. They are being utterly destroyed. So what do the politicians and the central planners think about this? This is another massive loss where somebody got greedy and then basically they had their ass handed to them. And basically, what is the government saying here? The government is trying to act like you are stupid by saying, oh, tariffs, we've got to do them, but not telling you that they're literally just another tax on your hard work. So take a listen to this. So Melanie Joly says Trump's tariffs are a tax on the American people after saying Canada is imposing retaliatory tariffs are the best way to fight back. These people are either stupid or evil, and I think he's got that right. And I pointed this out too. She said this multiple times.
In Canada, what we've said is we take stock of what the U.S. has done, and at the same time, we know that the relationship will never be the same again. And that's my message to Europeans. The relationship with the U.S. will never be the same. They want to do things differently. We're the biggest client of the U.S. by far. We buy more from the U.S. than the U.K., France, China, and Japan combined. So for anybody that has been in business before, when you treat your client, your best client, the way we've been treated, well, of course, it means that you want fundamentally to change the way you're operating. What we've said is we understand that President Trump is taking decisions for his own administration and his own people, but he also respects strength. And we've made sure that there were counter tariffs on American products back in Canada. We are now at $60 billion worth of counter tariffs. We announced new counter tariffs on auto yesterday because we think that it is ultimately the best way to get to a good deal eventually. We're putting maximum pressure on the Trump administration, and at the same time, we are finding off-ramps. And the only people on earth that will be able to really have President Trump change course are the Americans themselves. And the Americans now understand that...
It's just so stupid when you think about it, because so many countries didn't retaliate. It's only China and Canada that retaliated. And what happened? Obviously, Trump retaliates. We're seeing it with China, that it's just being ratcheted up and up and up. So obviously, you know, fighting back is a losing battle. I mean, China is the second largest economy in the world. Canada is nowhere near the second largest economy in the world and is in a hopeless state right now because of what's happened over the past 10, 20 years. So it's absolutely insane when you have a weak economy to start tariffing goods, which is just another tax, which is going to lead to weaker demand in your economy. It's just so stupid. And then this is what's happening. Mark Carney here admitting another $8 billion essentially in taxpayer dollars that are going to be raised by these tariffs. Take a listen.
But until America's willing to sit down at the table for that, we got to protect workers, we got to protect companies. Those aren't just words. We're taking every dollar we get from tariffs that we put on, and we're recycling it back directly to the workers and companies that are affected. So there are layoffs that have started in the industry. Some of your clients, Stellantis, for example, a couple of weeks downtime at one of their factories. We're making sure that money goes to make sure those workers are made whole. We're also saying, and this is not an issue for the leading companies, but for some it will be, you don't have to pay your taxes for a while. You have to pay them ultimately when things get going again, or you can borrow directly from us to tide yourself over. Again, protecting the industry so that we can negotiate as a country from a position from strength.
And all this amounts to $8 billion. So $8 billion. And the Canadian government is essentially also becoming a bank. What do you think of that? Let me know in the comments. And take a listen to what Jagmeet Singh thinks of higher tariffs.
I think the full ramifications of the automotive sector tariffs are starting to kick in a lot of places. I'm just wondering, there've been a lot of takes about whether Canada's doing enough in terms of counter tariffs and countermeasures across levels of government, whether it needs to do more, whether it's doing too much, and that costs Canadians who have to purchase those imported goods.
Canadians
What's
are
the
paying the price.
NDP's take? Like, have we hit kind of Goldilocks equilibrium where it's just right, or would you want to see more retaliation,
There's been no
less?
negotiation either.
On the retaliation front, I think there's been a broad consensus around the fact that we're being hit in a war that we did not want, we did not choose. It's illegal, it's unprovoked, and we got to fight back. Canadians are proudly putting their elbows up. They're saying we're going to defend our country.
God,
we're
it's
fight
hard
back.
to watch.
Weekend,
It's hard to watch this clown, isn't it? You just can't believe what he said. And then look at this, guys. When you think about all that tariff money and where it's going, it's just another massive wealth distribution. So this is Stephen from Better Dwelling, and he put Canada's efficiency of government spending ranked 29 out of 32 countries in the Americas. Canada's election is about economic freedom, but we already score the highest in the Americas. We're ignoring the actual problem. Our government wastes a buttload on insider contracts. You can see where Canada is ranking here. Just below Ecuador, the United States is there, Argentina, Bolivia, Colombia, El Salvador, Uruguay. So those are the countries that Canada is spun into the mix. And you're seeing, obviously, what is happening with Doge in the United States and everything that's coming out with that. So you know how bad it really is. And then basically the FP, this person actually came out and said it how it is. This is very unusual. Canada's stuck in recession if you look past the headline numbers, says economist. And I got to give a hat tip to this guy because he's a professor at a university, which is really unusual for this. Canada's in a recession and has been for quite some time, says Lars Osberg. Perhaps not a true recession according to the standard definition that requires 2 consecutive quarters of negative gross domestic product. But Osberg said a recession is where we'd be if not for the country's historic population growth. Canada in 2023 recorded its fastest population boom in 66 years, increasing by 1.3 million people or 3.2%, the vast majority of which came from immigration. All those new residents are buying the basics in life and boosting consumption by enough to mask a struggling economy, he said. When you have population growth at 3% a year, that's a lot of people who are adding to aggregate demand. So basically, it just covers up how bad the economy is, and that's why you're seeing per person growth decline. The real measuring stick of a country's economy, Osberg said, is real GDP per capita. An economy's production per person. Canada's real GDP per capita in the third quarter declined for the 6th consecutive quarter, falling by 0.4%. The unemployment rate in November rose to 6.8%, up 1% from the same time last year. In terms of GDP per capita, we've been in a recession for some time now, and the increases in unemployment reflect that as well. And you're just continuing to see that because as more and more people get laid off here, the situation is just going to get worse and worse, unfortunately. And the response from all these politicians is to fight, is not to negotiate. And I think that's the wrong response, especially when you consider what's happening with other countries now, because it's not just Canada that's being targeted. Okay, Canada was the first one that got hit with Mexico, but look how well Mexico dealt with it compared to Canada. And Mexico has an economy that is 3 times as large as Canada. So it just goes to show how dumb this show of power is right now, and how the politicians are just more willing to polarize people instead of actually negotiate. They just want to implement these shadow taxes on you and have a massive wealth distribution behind the scenes of all this money that is apparently going to flow towards workers, when the reality is these people are just losing their homes like everybody else. So it's just an absolute disaster and a silent depression in Canada. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend you check out this video here. And then if you're looking for a VPN, also want to help out the channel, check out the link in the description, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.